Hello everyone, and welcome to this video where I will be ranking the top 10 most annoying Paladins champions to fight as of April 2023. Some characters are here because of poor balancing, others are here solely for their champion design. Regardless, please be aware that this is all my opinion. If you disagree with my list, or think I'm off the deep end, feel free to leave a comment down below. Let's begin with number 10, which is going to Inara, who makes this list mainly due to recent balancing, which has made her the best point tank in the game right now. Inara's whole kit is based around establishing a presence on the point with her defensive abilities, the first of which is Impasse. Upon activation, Inara summons a massive wall that has 5000 HP. Besides being used for cover, Inara can use the ability to trap enemies or cut off sightlines. With the Tremors talent, you can gain a second charge of the wall, making it even more potent. Her second ability is Earthen Guard. When activated, Inara gains 35% damage reduction and a 30% bonus to healing received for 5.3 seconds. With the Mother's Grace talent, that damage reduction is bumped up to a massive 50%. The bonus healing is bumped up by 20%, and Inara also gains CC immunity during the ability. With the Geomancer card capped out, you can have this ability on a 7.5 second cooldown, which makes Inara even more difficult to take down due to how often Earthen Guard is active. If you somehow manage to get close to her, Inara has one last tool up her sleeve, the Warder's Field. This ability plops down an obelisk that slows enemies in its range by 60%. As if the DR from Earthen Guard wasn't enough, Inara has the Sacred Ground card at her disposal, which reduces her damage taken by up to 25% while standing in the field. What really makes this ability a powerhouse is the Treacherous Ground talent. With this talent, the Warder's Field range is increased, and it now cripples enemies within it. Unlike other crowd control in this game, Resilience does nothing against the cripple, due to the fact that it's not duration based. So if you get caught in that cripple, especially as a flanker, you are done. Between rotating her cooldowns to constantly stay alive, as well as restricting your movement, Inara is a pretty tough foe. But would you believe me if I said that those factors are not the most annoying issue about Inara? Instead, it's this balance change, which removed the self-slow on Stone Spear. In past patches, despite her strengths, Inara's main downfall was fighting at range, mainly due to the self-slow on her weapon, which prevented Inara from chasing down foes, as well as making her an easier target to hit while firing. The Stone Spear has harsh damage fall-off as well, preventing Inara from having much impact at range. Well now, that weakness has been heavily negated. So, if an enemy escapes your setups, there's nothing stopping you from running after them, especially if you use Mother's Grace to negate CC. Because of this change, Inara players have started picking up Nimble and Lethality in the item store, which was previously unheard of. Let me just say, an Inara running at you with move speed boosts is one of the most terrifying things in this game, especially if she's blocking your escapes with walls from Tremors, or getting in close to hit you with the cripple from Treacherous Ground. So, that's Inara. Strong base kit and strong talents, only pushed over the edge due to one little balance change. Number 9 goes to Pip, who, like Inara, makes this list mainly due to recent balancing decisions. Really, the only main annoyances from his base kit come from the Explosive Flask slow and the Polymorph from his ultimate, both of which are easily mitigated with Resilience. The main frustration from Pip comes from his talents. Well, one talent in particular. But to explain that, I have to quickly explain some overarching balance changes. With the Season 6 patch, 4 supports got nerfs to their base kits, in exchange for talent passives, which is supposed to give them a portion of that power back. I'll use Furia as an example. Her healing and damage was lowered at base, so if you pick Solar Blessing, you get your healing bumped up at the cost of having lower damage, versus if you pick Exterminate, where your damage will be upped but your healing will suffer. While Furia, Grok, and Grover got their base kits gutted, Pip got off with a slap on the wrist. Not even a slap, a light tap on the wrist. The damage on Potion Launcher was lowered from 600 to 570. 30 damage. That's it. In exchange, all his talents were buffed. Thanks to Remedy, Mega Potion now heals for 2200, on top of providing the 200 HP shield, which is annoying to suddenly see your opponent's health spike. Catalyst with Surgery bumps Pip's base damage to 627, which gets bumped up to 846 with the damage bonus. But those talents are nothing when compared to how strong Combat Medic is this patch. On top of boosting your fire rate by 10%, Combat Medic allows Pip's Potion Launcher to hit allies and heal them for 750 health. Well, due to the new Curative passive, that's actually 900 health. Really confusing description. Pip can heal multiple allies at once for 900 health every 0.9 seconds for 1000 healing per second, which is very noticeable. Due to the heal not being tied to a cooldown, Combat Medic Pips don't face the restrictions that other healers do, and are free to pump out healing constantly, even through Cauterize. Of course, the 20% bonus healing doesn't apply to just the Potion Launcher. It also applies to the Healing Potion, allowing it to heal for 1200. Pips with Combat Medic can combo Healing Potion and a Weapon Shot together to heal for a burst of 2100. Seriously, why even play Mega Potion when this exists? With the Reload card and Chronos, Pip can have a full cooldown reset on every other potion when hitting multiple allies, which in some cases allows for a 4200 burst of health with Combat Med. Luckily, Combat Medic Pip is counterable once Cauterize starts scaling. It's just so strong early game and against experienced Pips. Combat Medic was already a strong healbot talent last patch. The recent changes pushed it over the edge for me. If I wanted to play against healbot supports who hold the primary fire button all game, I would have played Overwatch. Number 8 goes to another support, and that's Ray. Ray's Spirit Link can be used on allies to give them a small bit of health, as well as 1% ultimate charge every 2 seconds. If you want to boost that ult charge rate, you can pick the Focus talent, which puts Spirit Link on a cooldown, but triples its effects, allowing you to grant your allies 3% bonus ult charge every 2 seconds. If you want even more ult charge for your team, you can use the Refreshing Break card, which grants up to 0.85% ultimate charge to each player hit with Chain Heal, including Ray herself. A team with Ray is going to have their ultimates up more often than a team without her. As if providing bonus ultimate charge wasn't good enough, Ray has a plethora of options for mitigating enemy damage. The first is my personal favorite card for the champion, Midnight Stroll. This card reduces the damage a linked enemy deals by up to 20%. Base Spirit Link has a 1-second cooldown, allowing you to easily toggle the damage debuff on enemies, as well as swapping it when you need. If that doesn't float your boat, you could use Ray's Envelop. On top of boosting you and your marked allies' move speed and jump height, Envelop also reduces the max damage you can take in a single hit to 275, which is a massive damage mitigation to champions with high burst damage. If all of that fails, Ray has one more trick up her sleeve with her ultimate Envelop. When cast, Ray gains 50% damage reduction, while her marked ally gains full damage immunity for 2 seconds. Afterwards, both Ray and her marked ally are healed for 75% of their health. This 75% heal is unaffected by Cauterize, by the way, so unless you kill Ray while she's casting, which is tricky due to the DR she gets, there's nothing you could do about that healing. On top of her strong utility, Ray is no slouch when it comes to offense. Sigil is an easy-to-use primary and great for getting damage in between chain heals. Did I also mention that there's a card to reduce chain heals cooldown based on hitting Sigil? Additionally, Ray's talents further bolster her offensive power. Restraint allows you to use Envelop while marked to an enemy to cut all of their healing, while Focus, as mentioned earlier, triples Spirit Link's effects, allowing you to deal more damage with the ability, as well as hitting enemies with a 30% slow. Overall, Ray can be a really frustrating champion to fight if the draft is against you. However, due to her low and unreliable healing, I'm keeping her low on this list. At number 7 is the most jarring champion to face in this game. That's Yagorath, who, despite going through the ringer balance-wise, can still be quite frustrating to face. The main cause of this is her passive Armored Carapace. When in planted form, Yagorath gains 30% damage reduction. This DR is bolstered in strength due to Yagorath hosting the highest base health in the game at 5,750. The DR and high health combined make Yagorath incredibly difficult to take out. As if that wasn't enough, Yagorath's Hardening grants her a bonus 25% damage reduction on top of CC immunity. The ability also deals up to 1,100 damage to enemies that get too close. Speaking of damage, let's talk about Yagorath's Caustic Spray. If the acid hits the floor, it leaves a pool behind that deals additional damage, as well as slows enemies by 15%. So, if you attempt to fight Yagorath in close range, you're gonna have a tough time between her damage reduction and the slow provided by the acid. Yagorath can up her damage on the acid pools via the corrosive acid talent. The talent also boosts her allies' move speed by 20% when they touch an acid pool. Of course, her planted form isn't the only point of concern, because with the press of a button, Yagorath can swap into her travel form. Suddenly, the most immobile champion becomes one of the most mobile, with massively increased move speed. Move speed that gets boosted even further with the acceleration skill. So, if you don't kill Yagorath in time, there's a high possibility that she's going to run away to heal up. While running away or engaging, Yagorath can use her Primal Vision, which grants reveals against targets in range, meaning that nowhere is safe to hide. To make Primal Vision even more annoying is the Sight Begets Strength talent, which grants Yagorath and her allies a stacking health shield with each pulse of Primal Vision. When all pulses hit, Yagorath and her allies can gain a 625 HP shield, all at once. That's base Torvald bubbles for the whole team. The last grievance with Yagorath is her ultimate Devour, which, despite many nerfs, can still be a pain to fight. Upon activation, Yagorath targets an enemy to be eaten, and starts pulling them towards her. In the ultimate, Yagorath gains a new 3750 health pool that needs to be melted in order to break the ult. Keep in mind, that HP still has the passive DR attached to it. Because of this, many champions can't kill Yagorath before the ult goes off. Actually, that logic extends to all of Yagorath's kit. Due to her high health and great mobility, Yagorath can roll onto targets and more often than not, kill them before they kill her. Yagorath is what happens when the devs attempt to give a frontline point tank stats, but fail at actually making a point tank. At number 6, we have 7. Would have made more sense to have him earlier, I guess, since the numbers would have matched, but oh well. Much like Yagorath, this champion had an incredibly bloated base kit on release, and despite so many nerfs, can still be super frustrating to fight. Let's begin with the first issue, Hypermobility via the Spring-Loaded Talent. The Spring-Loaded Talent allows 7's explosive dodge to lay 2 traps at once, while having a bigger AoE. But the most notable buff of the talent is the 30% cooldown reduction on explosive dodge. This comboed with Chronos, and the Latch and Fire card, and the Night card, means that 7 will almost always have a movement skill active. And his movement skills are no joke. As mentioned earlier, we have the explosive dodge, which is essentially Lex's slide, but better, since you drop some mines behind. But the more notable of his movement skills is the grappling claw, which is essentially Vora Tendril, but better. On top of having more distance than Vora's Tendril, 7 hosts 2 charges of the ability at base, meanwhile Vora needs a talent for that. And if 7 hits a wall while grappling, he could stick to the wall to enter stealth for a few seconds. Besides his mobility, 7 has other strengths as well, like his damage. His weapon, the Heavy SMG, has 3 firing modes: Burst for long range, Auto Fire for mid range, and Mag Dump for close range. No matter what the engagement looks like, 7 can match the tempo at all times. I want to bring special attention to the Burst mode and Mag Dump. The Burst mode has very lenient damage falloff, while the Mag Dump can deal up to 1,800 damage up close, which is insane when comboed with Deft Hands. 7's ultimate is a targeted fear that activates very quickly, and due to its ability to hit multiple targets, gives 7 the opportunity for team wipe potential with his team. Despite not being as strong, his other 2 talents can be pretty annoying to face as well. The Burst mode and Tribunal upgrades has a ton of visual noise, and Overcharged allows 7's grappling hook to pull in enemies akin to Makoa. Would you believe that actually used to be in the base kit? If I made this video around the time of 7's release, he would have easily made the number 1 spot. As of right now, I still find him annoying, but not number 1 annoying. Number 5 goes to a character who I've seen the most community outrage about. That's Kasumi, who, like other champs here, despite many nerfs, can still be annoying to fight. The primary complaints come from Kasumi's primary, the Yokai Doll. Unlike other primaries in this game, where you have to aim to fire a hit scan or projectile attack, Kasumi uses a targeting cone, akin to support's healing abilities. Because of this, Kasumi has very little room for error when attacking a target, and will usually guarantee damage on them. To make the primary even more annoying is Kasumi's Curse passive. On each successful primary fire hit, the enemy gains a stack of Curse, which lowers their outgoing damage while increasing the damage they take from Yokai Doll. Fighting against a lenient weapon can already be a pain, but it's made even worse when you have a 10% damage debuff on ya. What really sets the yokai doll over the edge for me is its incredible range. 120 units is nothing to scoff at. Keep in mind that Kasumi does not have any form of damage falloff, meaning that she could play at max range with no penalties. Even though Kasumi hosts the lowest DPS in the damage class, the consistency of her primary makes it one of the most annoying to face. Good luck fighting this character as a flanker. But wait, it gets worse. Kasumi's Savage Tear uses the same targeting cone as Yokai Doll. Against targets with max curse stacks, it deals 900 damage and disarms them for 1 second. The disarm status means that you cannot use your weapon for that time. If the damage from the base Savage Tear isn't enough for you, you can always boost it to 1000 with the Essence Drain card. Why Kasumi is the only champion in this game to have a card that flat out buffs her damage is unknown to me. On top of the damage debuff and the disarm status, Kasumi has another unique status effect: Fears from her Spirit Lures. When an opponent triggers a trap, Kasumi can teleport to it and incur a fear on nearby opponents. Of course, if that sounds too risky, you can always pick the Spirit Bombs talent and just place the traps at range and have them automatically fear nearby opponents. Nothing better than your team suddenly running away in fear due to a random Kasumi trap. The devs' attempts to fix Kasumi only made her clunky to play, while simultaneously not fixing her frustration factor. Seriously, I think Kasumi is the only champion in this game who's annoying to face while also being annoying to play as. If you're interested, I actually made a rework concept for Kasumi as a flank champion. Feel free to check it out. At number 4 comes a champion that won't surprise anyone who frequents my streams. That's Fernando, who makes this list solely due to one talent. But first up, Fernando's base kit. Weak primary, weak attack at range, less than optimal mobility, and a decent shield on a cooldown. Well, if you pick the Aegis talent, that shield gets changed from being cooldown based to being resource based, meaning Fernando can bring the shield up or down at any time. When the shield is down, it recharges super quickly, only taking about 6 seconds to get back to full health. But if that's too slow for you, you can always take the Towering Barrier card, which further increases the shield gain with Aegis. As if that wasn't frustrating enough, the Aegis shield also regains health while it's active! Hey, they finally made Leon's shield viable, only it's not on Khan. If all that shielding isn't enough for you, you can take some Guardian from the item store, which feels like it was made solely for this boring talent. One thing I love about the design of shields in this game is that most are static and cooldown based, meaning that you can often outmaneuver them or wait them out. Both of those options are not available to you when fighting an Aegis Nando. You can't wait the shield out because it has a permanent uptime if managed correctly, and you can't outmaneuver it because Fernando can just turn around to face you. The only way to truly counter Aegis Nando is to buy Wrecker, which I despise, as this feels like the only champion where you're forced to buy Wrecker if you want to beat him. I will admit, once Wrecker starts stacking on your team, Aegis loses a ton of power. This comboed with nerfs to the town's shield regen and base health have reined in its frustration a bit. But Fernando's Aegis isn't the only rage-inducing aspect of him. When all else fails, Fernando's ultimate Immortal has his team covered. When activated, Fernando and his allies in range cannot fall below 1500 HP. I have lost count as to how many kills this ult has robbed me of. Of course, due to the 4-second uptime of the ult, Fernando will most likely have another full health Aegis shield to shove in your face once the ult concludes. I think I finally understand what Overwatch players were saying when they complained about shooting shields all match. Thanks Fernando for giving me that perspective. At number 3, we have the Flying Roach Drogoz. Drogoz is defined by his boosters, which when managed well, allow him to stay in the air indefinitely. From the sky, he is able to rain down on opponents with his rocket launcher. He could also use his Fire Spit to hit enemies hiding behind cover or shields. Drogoz can also carpet bomb an area with his salvo. Additionally, Drogoz can combo Fire Spit with salvo for a nasty 2150 burst. Somehow, all of this isn't the most annoying aspect of the character. Enter the Fusillade talent. Damage dealt when hitting an enemy directly with rocket launcher or salvo is increased by 25%. Let me simplify that. Direct hits get a 25% damage increase. Direct hits. You know, what you want to be hitting is Drogoz for max damage regardless? Sure, let's just slap a 25% damage increase on that, making direct hit rockets deal 1063 damage, over half of most flanks' health. How is Fusillade still in this game? No other talent in this game offers such a free damage increase. Oh, the Spit Salvo combo mentioned earlier? Damage gets bumped up from 2150 to 2462, allowing you to one-clip most champs in this game. This nasty damage, comboed with Drogoz' ability to fly, can make him infuriating to fight against. Evomoji, what are you waiting for? Rework Fusillade already. I almost forgot to mention his ultimate Dragon Punch. When it collides with an enemy, it's an insta-kill. Anytime this ultimate is activated, say goodbye to someone on your team. A personal added grievance for me is that this character reminds me of Pharah from Overwatch, and I have Pharah PTSD, so that's not helpful. Second to last, we have another blaster champion, Betty La Bomba, who, in my opinion, has been overbuffed. Betty's primary fire grenade launcher is a spammable weapon much like Dredge. Originally, the damage on the weapon was 600, then buffed to 650, where it felt fine. Then it was buffed again to 700 damage, meaning that Betty can 3-shot 2100 HP targets without Haven. Betty's grenade launcher isn't her only form of damage. All of her abilities have some damage tied to them, like the cluster grenade, in which Betty shoots out one grenade that explodes into multiple smaller grenades based on how many entities it hits. If you fire this against an Azan wall, for example, you will get massive damage. The short 6-second cooldown further adds to its spammy nature. Next, we have the most frustrating ability to face, her Hail of Bombs. When activated, Betty chucks a magazine that randomly spits out explosions to deal damage in an area. Like Tyra's Molotov, there is nothing you could do once the ability is out, as you can't destroy the magazine to stop it from firing. If all of that spam damage doesn't sound like enough, you can always take Betty's Fiery Disposition talent for added percent health damage on each explosion hit, regardless if it's from her grenade launcher, cluster grenade, or hail of bombs. On top of all of this spam, Betty hosts some decent mobility as well. Explosive Personality grants Betty 3 buck-like jumps to traverse the map with. She can also fart on nearby enemies for 235 damage and a noticeable knockback. The ability can get even stronger with cards. With the Fire from Above and Queen's Entrance cards, Betty can have better movement than most of the flank class. This comboed with the massive 50% cooldown reduction from the Gotta Bounce talent means that Betty can be repositioning often and constantly finding new angles to spam from. Despite being one of my favorite champions to release lately, I do feel that Betty is overtuned at the moment, and infuriating to fight against, especially if you have a slow team comp. I personally think that they should lower the grenade launcher's damage back to 650, and tweak Betty further if needed. Before we get to number 1, I wanted to quickly follow up on some of the annoying champs from 2021. Androxus got Cursed Revolver put into the base kit, and there was a brief stunt where they gave him bleed damage. That was fun. Ceres got the Agony stun put in her base kit. Awesome. But perhaps the most notable was the nerfing of Tyra. The DR stacking from Mercy Kill was nerfed, and Burn Monster had its cripple removed, praise Genos. Because of this, I no longer consider Tyra one of the most annoying champions in this game. The others still stand though. At number 1, we have a character who keeps getting buffed despite already being strong, and that's Sha Lin. Base kit wise, he's not the worst defender. A decent long-range primary, a spam option for when opponents get close, and a stealth retreat option. The eyebrow starts going up when you look at his crippling arrow. On a short 8-second cooldown, 5 seconds with cards, Sha Lin's next arrow will cripple opponents for 2 seconds, up to 2.5 seconds with cards. When many champions are dependent on mobility to survive, I don't have to explain why a cripple on a damaged champ is strong. But wait, the crippling arrow gets even stronger with not 1, but 2 talents that benefit it. The first is Desert Silence. This reduces the cooldown of Crippling Arrow by 1 second. And now, the Crippling Arrow slows and silences opponents for 2 seconds. Keep in mind, with cards, you can have this silence up every 4 seconds. And have a longer silence duration than Torvald, who has to channel his Nullify. If you want to be a massive middle finger to everyone on the enemy team, pick this talent. Or wait, do you want to further invalidate flanks and low HP champs? Well, Sandtrap is just for you. Crippling Arrow now explodes for a bonus 300 damage, but its cripple duration is reduced by 1 second, and its cooldown is increased by 1 second. Despite looking heavy-handed with nerfs, this is in my opinion one of the strongest talents in the game. Due to the bonus damage, Sha Lin hosts the highest non-boosted projectile damage in the game at 1,300. This on top of crippling the opponent for 1 second. If you hit a flanker with this, actually if you hit any low HP target with this, they're done. Did I also mention that due to the AoE, you can potentially cripple multiple opponents at once? Keep in mind, you can do this every 6 seconds! What's so baffling to me is despite his overpowered talents, Sha Lin keeps getting buffed! Of his balance changes from 21, most of them are buffs. Withdraw and Rapid Shot cooldown decreases, Desert Silence buff, Rapid Shot damage buff, and just recently, a health and fire rate buff. If you can get past the difficulty curve and frame rate issues, I highly believe that Sha Lin is one of the best champions in this game, as well as the most frustrating to face as of this time. With all that ranting out of the way, that's where I'm gonna leave this list. Do you agree or disagree with my picks? Let me know down below. Don't forget to clap that like button and laser down that sub button. Touching the bell is also a great way to stay in the loop. As always, I'm YellowNinja, and peace.